video that I was going to share with you how I did my black and white images. So I thought this would be an appropriate one to work on. As you can see, it's a regular full color image, and we can go in here and tweak things if we want to, but I'm going to get right at changing this to black and white. So if I click here on the HSL/Grayscale, right here at the very top, convert to Grayscale. And so we can just click right on that, and instantly we get pretty good black and white right out of the box, so to speak. If I push down my space key on the keyboard, we can actually move this around and see the whole image. Now, when I was in photography school at college, we basically studied a lot on black and whites. That's where we began. We did a lot of prints, and some of the key things to look for in printmaking was that we had good rich blacks, that we had stellar whites, some good clean whites, and we had the full range of grays in between. So that's what I look for when I do black and whites as well. So as I look through the image, that's what I'm looking for, that my blacks look rich and fully black, and I don't want to see grays that look muddy, and you'll see grays sometimes in an image if they don't look good. A lot of times they'll look muddy, especially in the skies and so forth. And the whites should have a good white. And sometimes it's a good idea to take something that's white, like a sheet of paper from your printer or something like that, and hold it up to your image and make sure it's very close to that. You want a nice pristine white. Over here in your sliders, you see we've got red, orange, yellow, so forth on down, and not all of these will have an effect on the image. Let me make the image a little bit smaller. I'm going to do a Control minus. If you have a Macintosh, that would be Command minus, and now we can see everything on the image. And you see when I move this slider, it's only affecting a couple of things over here on this gas pump and on this roof, because guess what? They are the reddest objects in this image. So really, we're not going to worry too much about that. We don't know exactly how much we should take those, so it's not that big of a deal. Orange, there's some more objects that are closer to orange in this. We can make them either lighter or darker. It's totally your call. Yellows, you can see what things are being affected in the yellow range. Again, your call. If we had grass, that would be more affected, I guess, but you see the trees in the background. So you might want to lighten that up a little bit, maybe around the middle. And then aquas, that's probably not going to have much effect. No. And we go to blues. If we had sky in here, that's certainly going to make an effect. If you look inside the window, there's a sign there that's being affected. Purples. So we don't have a lot of colors in this that are being affected. Like I said, if we had grass and we had sky, you would see a lot more of dramatic changes here. In this particular image, we don't. We already have, though, some really good blacks and whites and so forth. If we go back over here to this little camera iris, click it for the basic, and we go to exposure, we can play with these sliders, make sure we got, nice clean exposure. We can work the contrast, make sure we don't have, you see if we turn that down any, you see it kind of mutes the entire image. kills the contrast a little bit, and it does muddy up the grays a little bit. So right here in the middle looks pretty good. Again, you can experiment with the highlights, the shadows, if you want to open up the dark areas and look at it, like up here in the trees where it's dark. You can open that area up a little bit if you want to, but make sure that you're keeping your blacks good and black. Whites, you can make them even brighter. Be careful not to go too far. Make sure your blacks are still black. Changing the clarity sometimes can make a real big difference in black and white. Sometimes it may not make sense to you particularly, but let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to just zoom in around that area and watch what clarity does inside there. Now this image doesn't have, like I said, let me zoom back or move back over to the trees. So I'm going to just hit the space bar. Now watch what happens on the clarity. You can see it over here on the left of the image 2. It's really punching the image up a lot, and we can see some sharpening going on in the image as well. So let me zoom out. I'm doing a Control minus, Command minus on a Mac, and let's do it again. Let's take the slider down, up, and you can actually give it that really soft look, but it in a black and white, that's not really helping things. Another thing that you can think about as well as a final step, we can zoom in a little bit more and keep our eye on the leaves, and we'll move around again in a minute too. Clicking right here, the third icon over where it says detail, we can look at sharpening. So let's first bring the amount up, and then we can experiment by bringing the radius up. And let's just zoom in some more. So amount, see the difference in sharpening there? Now let's zoom out a little bit so we can see how we're affecting the entire image. Let's just take the amount down, and let's bring the amount up, and now the radius. You should be able to see it right there. So let's just go ahead and take the radius down. Keep your eye let's look at the 1915. Let's see what it does there. Really can't see it there, can we? Let's look somewhere else. Let's see if we can see the detail change here. Not too much. We could see it definitely in the tree though, right? Let's look again at the tree. A little bit. If we crank it way up, you can see we're not doing ourselves any favors. It's looking kind of odd. Let's see what's now really it's not looking well that way at all. Let's bring this down and make it look a little more normal. Let's zoom out just a little bit, Control minus. I'm not really seeing noise. The noise would be right here in this darkened area. So we're looking pretty good. You can see a lot of detail in that broom. Now there's some noise here. Let's see what luminance will do. That's killing the noise quite a bit. We don't want to take the sharpening out. See what that luminance really is helping that. Now that may or may not be something you have to do. If you don't crank the sharpening up too much, you really don't need that. See what I mean? So we can maybe bring the radius down a little bit. And let's just see what this is going to look like in Photoshop. So I think we've got really a killer looking image here in Photoshop already. We don't have it cropped or anything yet, so but we've got nice blacks and whites, and we've got a good gray going. But what if we want to tweak the sharpness a little bit more, and what if we want to make double sure that our black and whites are the best we can make them? Well, I would recommend let's just do we do the levels. So just, Control or Command L brings up levels for us, unless you've got doing your screen recording like I am, and the command keys won't work, or the shortcut keys. So if we want to lighten it up, we can drag the slider, darken it up. We can drag the slider to the right, and drag this slider to the left. Will certainly lighten things up. And this is our gray area, so you see we can really make the blacks blacker in a hurry. A lot of times what I will do to see if the contrast is good is I'll drag the black slider a little bit to the right, the white slider a little bit to the left. Now let's just check the preview. See the difference? A lot more contrast. The whites are really popping now. And you can still change the grayscale a little bit to give it even more pop. Okay, so we click OK, and again we can look at the history and just go back one. I think that does make a nice difference. I really think this is, we see that little bit of grayness in there that this really wipes out. Just kind of flattens out just a tiny bit there, and this really makes it punch real nice. So I'm going to go ahead and crop this. I'm going to turn it into an 11 by 14. Now this is wanting to do it vertically, so I'm going to have to change that, right? So I'm going to just try to get my box to change instead of this. Okay, so I just need to come up here and change this to 14, this to 11, and I'm going to save it to 240 resolution. And I'm going to try to, let's straighten this puppy. So I'm going to run this right down here, and that looks straight. Okay, so let's move this right into here. I really want to get that gas pump in here, but I'm not going to be able to, because I really want to have that general store in here. I want to just in your face with the general store, so to speak. I want to bring this bottom up a little bit. I kind of like that. So I'm just going to hit enter. Let's just double click right here. And that looks fine to me. If I were going to have this printed, I would go ahead and do a file save as and change this to a JPEG format, and I would give it a nice name, and I have no idea what right now, but anyway, I would go ahead and say save, and then I would go ahead and run this all the way to the top, and I would want to go ahead and leave it. I would probably go ahead and just see what's the difference between these two. Nothing. I do want it to be baseline optimized, I believe, and click OK, and we're good to go. So that kind of wraps that part up. But you see, it's really not a difficult process, and this is something over at the School of Photography that we would have spent a lot of time working in the darkroom, trying, doing test prints with the enlarger, trying to get the tones just right, to get the grays right, to get the black and the white right, and everything in between. It takes time. Then you got to take it out in direct sunlight to make sure that everything is as you thought it was, because fluorescent lights and other lights just don't give you the proper lighting to be able to judge those things. So you got to take it outside, look at it under real light, and make those decisions. But in this case, I think we've got a nice image, and if you look over here at this side, you see this post runs very nicely with the side of the image. You see this runs pretty good with this side of the image. So I think we got it squared up pretty nice. I really like the fact that we have the straighten button right in here with the crop. But you see that there's some things to play with inside of Camera RAW. If we go over here, this is CC 2014. But right here in Camera RAW, we've got all of these sliders. Like I say, if you have lots of color in the image, like a nice big blue sky, and you click, to convert this to grayscale, and you've got this blue sky up here, you've got some darkness that you can play with in the sky, or lighting and so forth. So you have a lot of control. Green grass, lots of trees, you've got controls over that. And then you come back over into your basic settings, and all of these controls. Notice this does change quite a bit. You don't have the vibrance anymore, and you don't have saturation. But all these controls are still available to you to fine-tune your black and white. And then also you can work on the sharpness and any noise that's there as well. So we can turn out some wonderful black and white images, things that you'll be proud of, and enter those contests with really nice black and whites. All right, let me know if you have any questions. Please post them on YouTube for me to see, and I'll be glad to answer them. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.